Some criminal investigations fall apart because detectives make mistakes. Others collapse because witnesses disappear, memories fade, or leads go cold. But every so often, investigators encounter something far more disturbing. Evidence that was carefully collected, documented, and secured simply vanishes. No signs of forced entry. No explanation. No answers. Tonight, we'll explore 3 terrifying cases where the evidence disappeared overnight, turning promising investigations into unsolved nightmares. And in each story, the missing evidence may have been the only thing standing between the truth and darkness. Let's begin. In 2008, the quiet town of Black Hollow was shaken by a brutal murder. 34-year-old Daniel Mercer was found dead inside his home. The scene was violent, furniture overturned, broken glass everywhere, and evidence suggesting the victim had fought desperately for his life. Detectives quickly identified a suspect, a former business partner named Eric Lawson. The 2 men had been locked in a bitter dispute for months. Witnesses reported hearing threats, financial records showed growing tension, and most importantly, investigators recovered fingerprints matching Eric's from a knife discovered near the scene. The case seemed straightforward. Police also obtained security footage from a nearby gas station. The footage appeared to show Eric driving near Daniel's neighborhood shortly before the murder. Within weeks, prosecutors felt confident. The evidence was overwhelming. Or so they believed. Everything was stored inside the department's secure evidence room. The room required 2 separate access cards. Every entry was logged. Multiple cameras monitored the area. Nothing should have gone wrong. Then one Monday morning, Detective Rachel Hayes entered the evidence room. At first, she thought she was mistaken. The shelf containing the murder evidence was empty. Completely empty. The knife was gone. The fingerprint reports were gone. The surveillance footage was gone. Even photographs from the crime scene had vanished. Rachel immediately contacted supervisors. Panic spread throughout the department. An internal investigation began. Officers reviewed entry logs. No unauthorized access appeared. Nobody had entered during the weekend, at least according to the records. The security cameras were examined next. That's when investigators noticed something strange. For exactly 58 minutes on Saturday night, every camera covering the evidence room had stopped recording. No footage, no explanation, just a blank gap. Technicians searched for equipment failures. They found none. The recording system had been manually disabled, yet no one could determine who had done it. As days passed, prosecutors faced a nightmare. Without the physical evidence, their case was falling apart. Defense attorneys attacked every remaining piece of information. Soon, critical evidence became inadmissible. The judge ruled that the prosecution could no longer prove the chain of custody. The suspect walked free. For many residents, it felt like justice had died. Months turned into years. The case faded from public attention. Then, something unexpected happened. A retired detective named Samuel Price received a package. No return address, no fingerprints. Inside was a single photograph. The image showed a wooden table. Lying on that table were the missing knife, photographs, and evidence files. The very items that had disappeared years earlier. Investigators analyzed the photograph. The shocking discovery came next. The picture had been taken recently. Years after the evidence vanished. Someone had possession of the missing materials all along. Someone who wanted police to know, but not enough to reveal themselves. The sender was never identified, and Daniel Mercer's murder remains officially unsolved. When 22-year-old Emily Carter left work one rainy evening, nobody realized it would be the last time she was ever seen. Emily worked late shifts at a local restaurant. Around midnight, she walked toward her car alone. Witnesses later recalled seeing a dark-colored van parked nearby. At first, nobody thought much about it. But when Emily failed to return home, concern quickly turned into fear. Police launched a search. Days later, investigators discovered a critical lead. A convenience store located near Emily's route had surveillance cameras facing the street. Detectives rushed to review the footage. What they found was chilling. The video appeared to show Emily walking alone. Moments later, a van approached. The footage wasn't perfect, but investigators believed the vehicle could be identified. Finally, they had something. The recording was copied and placed into evidence storage. Detectives planned to enhance the footage the following morning. But morning brought disaster. The tape was gone. Staff searched everywhere. Nothing. The original recording had vanished. Investigators turned to backup copies. Surely those would survive. Unfortunately, Things became even stranger. One backup file had been corrupted. Another contained only static. A third was missing entirely. Experts attempted data recovery. They failed. It was as though the footage had been erased from existence. Frustration spread through the investigation. Then employees at the convenience store began receiving anonymous messages. The warnings were brief. Stop asking questions. Forget what you saw. Leave it alone. Police attempted to trace the messages. The trail went nowhere. Months passed. The investigation stalled. Then a former store employee came forward. He claimed that shortly after closing on the night of Emily's disappearance, he had seen someone inside the store. A stranger. Someone who definitely didn't belong there. The individual seemed interested in the surveillance system. Unfortunately, the employee couldn't provide much information, only a vague description. Not enough for identification. Years later, a private investigator reopened the case. During a review of old storage devices, he found something astonishing. A fragment of the original footage. Just a few surviving seconds. The quality was poor. But one frame captured part of the vehicle's license plate. Investigators ran the number. What they discovered shocked everyone. The registration belonged to a man who had died 6 months before Emily disappeared. Authorities searched for explanations. Clerical error? Stolen plates? Fraud. Nothing fit perfectly. The mystery only deepened. Emily Carter was never found. And the vanished tape remains one of the most unsettling pieces of missing evidence in local history. Detective Michael Reeves had spent nearly 15 years investigating missing persons. He had seen countless tragedies. But one pattern kept bothering him. Several disappearances shared strange similarities. Victims from different towns, different ages, different backgrounds. Yet certain details matched perfectly. Locations, dates, witness descriptions. The similarities seemed impossible to ignore. Michael began assembling a special case file. A massive collection of witness statements, photographs, timelines, maps, and notes. For months, he worked in secret. Few people knew what he was building. The deeper he looked, the darker the picture became. He became convinced that multiple disappearances were connected, and that one individual might be responsible. Eventually, Michael believed he had enough evidence to present his theory. The next morning, he arrived at work, ready to share everything. But when he opened his office cabinet, the file was gone. At first, he assumed someone had borrowed it. Nobody had. He checked department databases. Nothing. No digital records, no backup files, no references, nothing. It was as if the case file had never existed. Michael was stunned. Coworkers claimed they couldn't remember seeing the project. Supervisors found no record of authorization. Computer specialists examined department systems. According to the data, the file had never been created. The situation became surreal. Michael knew what he had seen. He knew the work was real, yet every trace had vanished. The disappearance consumed him. He spent months searching for proof, anything, a note, an email, a photograph. Finally, he discovered an old notebook stored in a box at home. Inside were handwritten references to the missing investigation. Names, locations, dates. Enough to continue. The notebook pointed toward an abandoned property deep in a remote forest. Michael convinced authorities to investigate. A search team was assembled. The property appeared deserted, at least at first. Inside, officers discovered signs that someone had been living there. Recent footprints, food supplies, makeshift sleeping areas. Whoever had occupied the building had left only days earlier. Then one officer noticed writing on a wall. A message scratched into the wood. The words sent chills through everyone present. The message contained information that had existed only within Michael's vanished case file. Details never released publicly. Details no outsider should have known. Somehow, whoever had been living there knew exactly what investigators had discovered. The suspect was never found. The abandoned property remains empty, and the missing case file has never been recovered. Outro 3: Investigations. 3 disappearances of critical evidence, and 3 mysteries that remain unsolved. Were these events the result of corruption, carefully planned cover-ups, or something even more disturbing? We'll probably never know. But one thing is certain. When evidence disappears overnight, the truth often disappears with it. And sometimes, it never comes back. Which story disturbed you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy dark mysteries, unsolved cases, and terrifying stories, don't forget to subscribe for more. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe. For nearly 3 years after the disappearance of Emily Carter, the investigation remained frozen. Detectives chased hundreds of leads. None led anywhere. The mysterious van remained unidentified. The surviving footage fragment raised more questions than answers. And Emily's family slowly lost hope that she would ever be found. Then, during a routine review of old evidence, investigators uncovered something they had overlooked. A truck driver had been traveling along a highway 20 miles from the convenience store on the night Emily vanished. His dashboard camera had recorded part of his journey. At the time, the footage seemed irrelevant. But technology had improved. Investigators decided to examine it again. For hours, analysts scanned the recording frame by frame. Most of it showed empty roads, rain, darkness, nothing unusual. Then they noticed a vehicle, a dark van, the same model believed to be involved in Emily's disappearance. The vehicle appeared only briefly before turning onto a remote service road. Detectives rushed to investigate the location. The road led deep into a heavily wooded area, rarely visited by anyone. Search teams combed the forest. Days passed with no results. Then one volunteer discovered something partially buried beneath leaves and soil. A rusted metal box. Inside were dozens of old photographs. Most were damaged by moisture, but several showed locations connected to missing person cases from across the region. The discovery shocked investigators. Some photographs contained handwritten dates. Many corresponded with known disappearances. Yet nobody could determine who had taken them. The forest search expanded. More items were found. Pieces of clothing, discarded maps, camping equipment, but nothing directly connected to Emily. Despite the strange discoveries, authorities still lacked enough evidence to identify a suspect. The investigation stalled again. Months later, another disturbing development emerged. A journalist researching the case received an anonymous phone call. The caller's voice was distorted. The message lasted less than 30 seconds. The caller claimed the missing tape had never been destroyed. According to the mysterious voice, it had been hidden, preserved, waiting. Before the journalist could ask questions, the line went dead. Police traced the call. It originated from a public payphone that no longer exists today. The lead went nowhere, yet the statement haunted everyone involved. If the tape still existed, who had it? And why keep it hidden? Years passed. Then, an unexpected breakthrough occurred. A retired electronics repairman contacted authorities. While cleaning an abandoned storage unit purchased at auction, he had discovered several boxes containing old surveillance equipment. Most of it was worthless. But one item immediately caught his attention. A videotape. The label had faded with age. Only a few letters remained visible, enough to make investigators curious. The tape was transported to a forensic laboratory. Experts worked carefully to recover its contents. The process took weeks. Finally, technicians managed to extract a portion of the recording. What they found left investigators stunned. The footage showed the convenience store. The same night Emily disappeared. The same camera angle that had supposedly vanished years earlier. The tape appeared authentic. Yet something was wrong. The recording ended abruptly just seconds before Emily was expected to appear. Someone had deliberately removed the most important section, frame by frame. The missing portion wasn't damaged. It had been professionally edited out. Whoever altered the tape knew exactly what they were doing, and they wanted one specific moment erased forever. The discovery reignited public interest. News outlets covered the story extensively. Online communities began investigating. Amateur researchers uncovered dozens of strange coincidences surrounding the case. Some believed powerful individuals were involved. Others suspected organized criminal activity. A few thought the truth was even darker. Despite renewed attention, authorities never identified the person responsible for editing the tape, and the missing section has never been recovered. To this day, nobody knows what happened during those final seconds before Emily vanished from the world. And perhaps that's exactly how someone wanted it. Detective Michael Reeves couldn't stop thinking about the message on the wall. The abandoned property had already been disturbing enough, but those words changed everything, because the message referenced information that should have been impossible for anyone else to know. Details that existed only inside the vanished case file. Details that had disappeared from every known record. For weeks, Michael reviewed every note in his possession, every photograph, every witness statement he had managed to reconstruct. The more he studied them, the more one realization terrified him. Whoever had been staying at the property wasn't simply aware of the investigation. They had been monitoring it, possibly from the very beginning. The question was how. Months later, Michael received a phone call from an elderly woman living nearly 200 miles away. She claimed she had information about one of the disappearances connected to his theory. At first, Michael was skeptical. He had received countless false leads over the years. But something about the woman's voice convinced him to listen. She explained that her brother had vanished decades earlier under circumstances remarkably similar to the cases Michael had been studying. Before disappearing, he had repeatedly spoken about a secluded location hidden deep within the mountains, a place locals avoided, a place surrounded by rumors. The woman provided directions. Against the advice of several colleagues, Michael decided to investigate. The journey took almost 6 hours. The location was isolated. No nearby homes, no phone signal, no signs of recent visitors. As Michael explored the area, he discovered the remains of an old cabin. The structure had partially collapsed years earlier. Nature was slowly reclaiming it. Most people would have walked away. Michael didn't. Inside the cabin, he found evidence that someone had occupied the building at various times over many years. Old food containers, newer batteries, fragments of newspaper articles, and dozens of pages torn from books. Then he discovered something even stranger, a hidden compartment beneath loose floorboards. Inside were several notebooks. The pages were filled with observations, dates, names, descriptions of people. Many matched missing person cases. Some names belonged to victims Michael had personally investigated. Others had never appeared in official databases. As he continued reading, a chilling pattern emerged. The notebooks described individuals being watched long before they disappeared. Their routines, their habits, their fears. Someone had been documenting them. For years, possibly decades. Michael immediately contacted authorities. A forensic team arrived the following day. But before they could begin a detailed examination, disaster struck. During the night, a fire destroyed most of the cabin. Investigators never determined how it started. The notebooks were heavily damaged. Many pages became unreadable. Yet one notebook survived almost intact, just enough to reveal one final clue. Near the back of the journal was a list, a collection of names. Several belonged to known victims, but one name stood out. It wasn't a victim, it wasn't a witness, it wasn't a suspect. It was Detective Michael Reeves, his own name, written years before he had ever begun investigating the disappearances. The discovery shook everyone involved. How could someone have known about him years in advance? The possibility seemed impossible. Yet the evidence sat directly in front of them. As investigators dug deeper, more strange discoveries surfaced. Records vanished. Witnesses changed their stories. Documents disappeared from archives. Every major breakthrough seemed to dissolve before it could be fully understood. Eventually, funding for the investigation ended. The task force was dissolved. The remaining evidence was archived. Michael retired shortly afterward, but the mystery never left him. Years later, he would still receive anonymous letters. No return address. No fingerprints. Most contained only a single sentence. The same sentence repeated over and over. Some files are not meant to be found. The sender was never identified. The disappearances remain unsolved. The hidden observer was never caught. And the case file that started everything has never been recovered. Some investigators believe corruption was responsible. Others suspect a highly organized criminal network. But a few who worked the case have a different theory. They believe someone was always one step ahead, watching, waiting, and removing any evidence that came too close to the truth. Whatever the answer may be, one fact remains. The file existed. Detectives saw it, worked on it, added to it. Yet today, there is no official proof it was ever there at all. And that may be the most terrifying mystery of all. Final outro: 3 cases, 3 investigations, and 3 collections of evidence that disappeared without explanation. A murder weapon that vanished from a secure evidence room, a surveillance tape erased from history, and an entire investigative file wiped from existence. Were these events caused by human interference, a sophisticated cover-up, or something far darker lurking behind the scenes? We'll likely never know. But one thing is certain: when evidence disappears, the truth often disappears with it, and sometimes, the people searching for answers become part of the mystery themselves. If you enjoyed these terrifying stories, subscribe for more dark mysteries, unsolved cases, and chilling horror stories. And before you go, tell us in the comments, which case disturbed you the most, and what do you think really happened to the missing evidence?